Alright, thanks for joining in. This is the second video of these built-in cabinets, so if you haven't checked out that first video, why don't you go ahead and give that a view as well. In this video, we'll be picking up right where we left off from the first one, which is on these doors. Here we go.
Alright, back out in the shop here on this early Saturday morning, and I'm turning my attention to the doors, which I was working on yesterday as well. So where we're at with the doors, I've got all the grooves cut to accept the panel, all the mortises cut for the loose tenons, and then I've also sized the panels for the inside. And so what they look like is they're of course cut to size, and then a rabbet is added all the way around the perimeter. And so what that does is that fits right in here. And the inside of the door is essentially flush. Essentially, there's a little gap, little edge there, but not too bad. And then the outside of the door has about a 1/4 inch of extra overhang. And so this material I bought is also roughly a 1/4 inch. And so what I'm going to use here is to lay out an X design on the front of each door. And so these will get glued in place to the panel after the whole door is glued up. But what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take the panel out of this dry fit that I have here and then clamp it back together without the panel in it. I'm going to lay these boards underneath and mark the exact locations of the corners and what angles they're at. So then when it comes time to cut these and lay them on there, I'm not going to be guessing it. What angle is, exactly what each angle is, I'll know it from the templates I'll make. So what I have is a center line drawn on this piece here. Probably hard to see in the camera, but there's a center line. And I'm going to use that to line up with the corners of the frame. And like I said, then mark the angles and mark the exact length. And I'll make a template for one door, and then I'll make a template for the other door. Here we go.
Once those templates are all marked out, I then glue the door up. Everything fits together pretty nicely. Checking for square and add some clamps. As those doors dry, I'm now cutting the edging that is going to be for the tops of the cabinet. The cabinet tops are just basically a piece of plywood, but they do need a hardwood edging to cover up all the exposed plywood here. And so, of course, cutting these thin strips, you always seem to get little burn marks, so I like to just run them through my planer on edge to clean them up. Here are the actual tops for the cabinets getting cut to width, and then here they're getting cut to length with the track saw.
So the doors were in the clamps drying. I was working on some other stuff like the top here for the cabinets. And once I got that clamped up, I switched my attention back to the doors. And I went to kind of set them out on top of the cabinet and start marking where the hinges would go. And I realized that my one set of doors was 4 inches too wide. And so backtracking as to what I did, I have dimensions for the doors on my little sketch. I cut the rails to that length and not subtracted off the stile widths. So I ended up with a door that was way too wide. So after some choice words and some yelling, I figured out, I'm like, well, I'll try to reuse some of the material there because it's mostly still all good. So what I did is I basically cut the door right where the stile was, and these are actually the current style, or the old styles are right here. I don't see them. And what I'm doing is I recut the groove for the panel, and now I'm actually using the domino to essentially mortise out a domino. And so you can see this is kind of a before and after here. It does a clean job actually of getting all the stuff out of there. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. Unfortunately, it kind of sucks, but luckily I can salvage this, I think, and not have to completely mill up a bunch more Popular that I don't have. So this should work. yeah, here we are, using the domino again, making these doors for the second time. So, what are you gonna do? All right, so after the door oopsie yesterday, got these back in the clamps before I headed in for the evening, and they came out, everything was looking good, and I've cut them all. I did kind of a cleanup cut on the table saw on both the top and bottom just to get the stiles and rails all perfectly flushed up. And then what I also did was lay these out on the face frame of the cabinet with some reference marks for a 1/2 inch overlay, and then trim these down in width just a little bit. Basically, I'd take off maybe what would it be, like a little less than a 1/16 on each stile to get it to be the exact size I needed. After this, I'm actually going to drill the holes for the hinge cups over here, and then from there I'll fine tune any more widths, or maybe I have to add a bevel on the center or the end to clear the face frame or clear the other door. But these are all ready for hinges, and so yeah, they're looking good. I'm turning my attention now to the tops for the cabinets. I have the larger top here, the smaller top over there. And what I've done is I've edge banded. I have 1 inch thick edge banding all the way around. Just in case I want to add, I don't exactly know what profile I want to put on the front of these yet, but if I want to put something more substantial, I can do that. And as well, the thicker edge banding allows me more area for scribing. So this, where these cabinets are going, is on both sides of a fireplace. So it's a wall, and then the fireplace is on the left side. So I need to fit these. So they're a little bit oversized right now. Once I get the cabinet boxes in place, I'll make a template and then transfer that template to here. But I don't have to worry about any plywood tearing out or chipping out after they're painted. I just have hardwood, which is a little bit more predictable in how it's going to act to either a jigsaw or sander or whatever it takes. So I'm going to flush these up. In retrospect, I shouldn't have made them 1 inch wide of edge. I should have done 3/4. My flush trim bit is exactly 1 inch. And I've got this little lipper attachment on there that works great for doing things like this. You can put the lipper attachment down on the surface, but the base of the router up against the side, and have a nice stable reference here with this large surface area. So here we go. So I'm gonna do next, gonna make a lot of noise, a big mess. Gotta remember to wear my mask. So here we go.
At this stage, the doors are just a bit too wide, and so what I do here is I close each one independently and mark them on the face frame, and then I take that measurement, and I know that's essentially how much to cut off my doors.
And so if you recall earlier, I actually dry fit the frame without the panel in it, and laid my brace pieces underneath and marked out all the corners where they kind of crossed in the middle, just so later I wouldn't have to guess at what the angles were. I had them already marked. And so what I've done with this first one is use those marks that were previously on the boards, using the miter gauge on the table saw, just kind of eyeballing that angle and adjusting the angle a little bit, and then sneaking up more and more in my line until the angle was right and I was on my line. And once I know basically one of the angles of my cuts, I essentially know the rest of them. Since my doors are square, basically everything is an angle, 90 minus an angle, or 90 minus 2 times that angle. But I'm still using the reference lines to double check that, because math sometimes can be hard, and sometimes our brains are stupid. So that's what I'm up to now. The big doors are done. I have both of them here. I'm now moving on to the smaller set of doors and these kind of marked up templates that I have. So let's cut them and fit them.
So that door I made too wide, well, I forgot to remake my templates for it after I recut it. And so I had to do the old geometry method here by taking some measurements of the door from corner to corner, getting the angles, and then trying it out with the actual pieces and sneaking up on everything and just getting it, just finagling. That's a good word. A lot of finagling. But finally got these things fit into place after a number of tries. One of the benefits of using a 1/2-inch panel for the door is that it does give me something substantial to shoot these pins into. The downside, of course, is it makes the door really heavy. I think the larger doors actually came in at about 11 pounds, which is fine based on the hinge rating and the height of the door, but still kind of a heavy door, awkward to hold on to and hang. Due to some of the space available to me in my garage, I wanted to get the shelves polyurethane first and just let them dry and then get them out of the way. So I applied, I think, 2 coats to the bottom and 3 coats to the top. One of my least favorite tasks in painting projects is the masking. So I mask all the edges of the cabinets by the face frame and then come back with plastic and attach that plastic to the masking that's already on there. Alright, so after spraying some primer, I'm going back and filling any imperfections and sanding everything smooth. And really that's how you end up with a nice painted finish, is you start with a smooth primed surface. I always feel a little bit like a chemist or a lab technician or something here when I'm mixing paint and water. Since I have a 400 milliliter cup on my gun, I start with about 350 milliliters of paint, and then I add another 40 to 50 milliliters of water, which is I think 15% or so. And that usually gets me close. I kind of eyeball it from there, add a little more paint, a little more water. After testing out the spray patterns on my little scrap piece of MDF back there, it's now time to spray some paint. First up is the baseboard. And there's something oddly satisfying about watching dark paint color that white primer. So I think we'll just sit here and watch in silence.
All right, so we got everything with a coat of gray paint on it. From the trim, the doors, the tops, the cabinet boxes over there, everything's been painted gray. One thing I did learn about dark gray paint on furniture, or even just dark paint on furniture in general, it shows every defect. So with the white primer, there were spots that I didn't even see with a raking light. When you have dark paint on there, it shows everything. Every little blemish, scratch, scuff, even some really small pinholes I didn't see with the white primer showed up when the dark paint got on there. So I had to fill and sand quite a bit more, even with this first coat of paint. But all that's now done. I've filled to what I saw. I've sanded that first coat smooth and flat. And next up is now the second coat of paint. And I hope that will be my final coat of paint. I was going to say something. Oh yes. So I'm hoping that's my last coat of paint, so they can start to unmask the cabinet boxes, do some touch-ups around the inside of the face frames and around some of the cutouts I made for electrical. And then I can mock these up one last time in the shop. And if everything looks good, get them ready for installation.
The second coat of paint was my final coat. It looked great after that. So last thing I did in the shop was reattach the doors, made sure I could adjust to a really nice gap between them, make sure everything still fit as they had previously, and then I pre-drilled for the pulls that were going on the doors. And that was really the last thing I did inside the shop. I disassembled everything, packed everything in moving blankets, and got it. Had some help and got these transported up to the final location to install them. And if you're curious, moving around a 50-inch long by about 40-inch tall cabinet, if you're wondering if it's awkward and challenging to do by yourself, it is. All right, so moving on to the installation video. Oh, wait. There's not installation video. Honestly, it would have been a video of my backside. My back, my legs, the back of my head. It's all you would have seen the entire time. So I'll try to explain it here with some pictures, and hopefully that does it justice. The first step is actually measuring and removing the baseboard where the cabinets would go. And here you can see a good view of that ledge that is on the foundation that the client wanted the tops of the cabinets flush with. So in order to achieve that, I used some adjustable legs. The small cabinet got 4 of them, the large cabinet got 6. And here's what those adjustable legs look like. They can go from 4 inches up to 6 inches. And so I chose a nominal height laying out the cabinets, and then I could fine tune it with these leveling feet. Another interesting feature is they have these clips that you can actually attach your toe kick or your baseboard to, and they click onto the leg itself. I did use that feature in this build, but I had to add about 1 inch of material to that front clip to get it flush with the face frame. But I also shot nails into the face frame through the baseboard to really secure it. After attaching the legs, I got it in position and adjusted the height so the top would be roughly flush with that foundation. And then I made my templates, which were essentially just 1/8 inch hardboard and some hot glue. Those templates were then laid on top of the tops, and I cut those to exact size on site. Then I could set that top onto the cabinet and do the final height adjustment to get it perfectly flush with that foundation, and then add some shims and screw these to the wall. Once they were attached to the wall, I would then permanently attach the top to the cabinet. From there, I turned my attention to the little fill strips that went between the cabinet and the drywall, so that'd be on the left-hand side of this picture. That took me a while to get those cut to size. They started out as 5/8 of an inch, and some basically got down to almost nothing, just a little sliver at the end. Then I cut the baseboard to final size, got that attached to the face frame and to those leveling feet that I talked about earlier, filled my nail holes, and added some caulking. There's a little bit needed on the top on this right hand side here by the wall. Little gap I had to fill, and then there's still a little gap even between my fill strip and the wall down at the bottom. So I filled that. As that caulking was drying, I added the adjustable shelves, mounted the doors, mounted the pulls, and then came back and touched everything up with paint. So that pretty much sums up 5 hours of work. All in all, these cabinets turned out really great. I think they look awesome in the space. As always, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good one.
We're going to do this again because that wasn't very good. Troubling. Having some troubles with my words. Need some more coffee, probably. All right. That's good. All right, so, man, fail. Delete that one.